Welcome back. This is the Light Forge podcast, Murder at Castle Nathria, card review podcast stream pod. This is Althea.
This is Merps. We're going through more of the neutrals. So we just finished up with the S tier and the A tier stuff. Now we are starting off with the Bs.
Yes. And the first one, I'm having so much trouble finding these because they're like
Yes.
not in the like right order. I mean, they are, but they're not done by rarity. And I did my order by rarity. So, okay. This is what we're doing here. We have just done the top 6. We're doing legendaries mixed in with everything else now, and here's the next 7. The next 7 are all B tier. So this entire video is just 100% B tier cards. None of these are B plus, which is very consistently B tier. That means there's a big gap, and this never happens pretty much. But there's a big gap between what we showed in the first video with the top 6 and what we're showing here. Like, A tier cards and B tier cards are not the same. Like, B tier cards are just like good cards in your deck. A tier cards are like, these should not be neutral cards, they're broken. So, like, for neutrals. They're fine for class cards, but they're like the most powerful class cards that, you know, you don't super complain about. And not good for neutrals at all. And B tier is like totally okay. Like, they could be common neutrals and they're totally okay and just powerful. So the first one of these is Forensic Duster. Forensic Duster is a 3 mana 3/4 battle cry. Your opponent's minions cost 1 more the next turn.
Powerful effect. So let's just think about okay, what is a 3 mana 3/4? Like, what score is it? Is it like a
D plus
it's
slash bottom of C, depending on how you want to look at it.
it's the very bottom of C.
Actually, I think it's the very top of D plus.
Okay. Very top of D plus, very bottom of C, because I think you guys would agree that that's not a good card, right?
Yeah.
Like, vanilla stats for its cost, that is just not a good card anymore. So it's getting a decent amount for this ability, and it's a good ability. Like, it is a good ability because you can really lock out your opponent. Now, one of the things that is holding it back just a little bit is, like, this is a card that gets so much more powerful if the meta is just somewhat tempo possible, right?
Yeah.
If it's just somewhat tempo possible, holy heck, this is so good.
Yeah.
With the way that I'm seeing it right now, it just doesn't seem to be the best meta for it. Now, like, it's still a great effect, and it's not like everybody's just gonna have all spells all the time and blah blah. It's just kind of a shame because with the sets that are in and with the way that the games are going to be playing out, it definitely takes away a bit of this thing's strength, I think.
Yeah, because you play it on curve, right? And your opponent will miss their curve like half the time. Like, how many times are you sitting on there with like 2 options for 4 drops or 2 options for 3 drops if you're the one going first? Very rarely. Like, I mean, not very rarely, but like less than half the time. And if your opponent plays a Forensic Duster, you're just done. You're done for that turn. You hero power and you move on. Like, that is huge. That is a huge, absolutely ridiculous effect, and it has no downside. And later on in the game, it still does work, right? If your opponent wants to play a bunch of minions, they can't. I mean, they can, but they have to pay extra mana each time. Like, it's still doing quite a bit of work even in the late game. But on curve, this would be game-winning in any other meta. And in this meta, it's like still really good. Like,
very good. I considered, like, oh man, maybe this is like a B plus. The only thing that bumps this down a little bit is my view on what I think this meta may be. Not like, oh, what I think the offering odds are going to be, and I understand those can change a lot. But just from the card pool that is in. So that's the only thing holding it back. In some other metas, this could be like a lot better.
Yep. All right. So that's Forensic Duster. Next up is Priest of the Deceased. Priest of the Deceased is one of the first cards they ever showed us for the set. It's kind of used to tell you what Infuse does. The 2 mana 2/3 common neutral taunt, and it has Infuse 3, which is super easy to fulfill. Gain +2/+2.
Yeah,
So
it's
so
really
that makes
good.
it a 2-mana Yeti that has taunt.
Yes, pretty damn good. Um, you will play this sometimes on turn 2, like
Hmm.
just because you will and kind of have to. And then other times you will get really good value from it. I think you should look at this in kind of the way that you look at like Darkmoon Dirigible as well, right? In which it's not that hard to make this card have the extra effect, and the
Hmm.
extra effect is quite nice, right? Like the dirigible, you're able to rush it out and everything. And here you get extra stats, but you're also very much okay with just playing it if you absolutely need something to
Yeah.
play.
A 2-mana 2/3 taunt would be the best card in Karazhan. Neutral. Because that's what Pompous Thespian is. It's a 2-mana 3/2 taunt, which is not even as good as a 2-mana 2/3 taunt. So yeah, this is just extra abilities. And this is what we mean by like, you're going to draft a lot of cards from this. You may look at it and be like, oh, B, but you're thinking of B in the previous meta. You're thinking of B in a standard meta, where it's like kind of the average card in your deck, maybe a little bit better than the average card in your deck. A B in this upcoming meta is really good. Like, the impact is not as much as an A, obviously, and A's do exist, but it's going to be your number one choice in a large majority of your picks when this card shows up.
Because you're going to be presented with a lot of like pantry spiders.
Yep.
You're going to be presented with pantry spiders, pompous thespians. Uh, Half of the sets, like more than half of the sets, are just not modern sets.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you're going to get a lot of poop picks.
Yep.
You're going to get a lot of very subpar picks.
They're like stuff that's close to a Yeti. And you don't want stuff that's close to a Yeti when you have Nathria level power levels. Alright, so that's Priest of the Deceased. These are all B tier cards, remember. Next up, we have Party Crasher. Once I find Party Crasher. I cannot find Party Crasher. Why am I not finding Party Crasher? How much mana is Party Crasher? It's an 8-drop, that's why. Okay, Party Crasher is an epic. I didn't realize we were already on the epic 8-drops. And it is a 8-mana 7/9. 8-mana 7/9, Battle Cry. Choose an enemy minion. Throw a random minion from your hand at it. So that means you take a random minion from your hand, you cast it at no extra cost, but you don't get battle cries or anything, and then that minion rush attacks the minion that you are targeting. But it's a random minion that comes out of your hand. So if you have more than one minion in your hand and they are different statted, it's kind of a dice roll how to get the most efficiency out of it. And also, you quote-unquote lose the card, right? Like, it's not like a free summon. You are getting rid of the card that you are putting onto the board.
Right. I really do like the fact that you can choose the enemy minion, right? Like, that is an important choice. Yes, there is an aspect that you cannot choose, which is what minion you toss at it. But being able to choose the enemy minion is very important.
Yes. So, yeah. So, it was hard to rate this card because there was nothing really like it in terms of mechanics in the that we've seen before, but it's also not like a totally crazy out there mechanic. I do like the description though. Like, now we're just the Hearthstone's getting very colloquial, whereas before you could always tell what the card did by reading it. That's totally gone out the window with this set. There are so many cards, and you'll see it in the class cards, where reading the card will tell you nothing about what it's doing. But here, as just throw a random minion from your hand at it, you're like, okay, I kind of understand what that means. But it does not say, like, summon a minion from your hand for free. It rushes at the target of your choosing, which is what it actually does. But yeah, it's understated, but you get the tempo, but you lose the card, but it's a little random. It's really good, but it's not like, it's not going to win you the game in a consistent way.
Agree. I think that's all that needs to be said about it.
Okay. Okay, after Party Crasher, we have our last non-legendary B tier. I skipped one. Did I skip one? I skipped one. I skipped Stoneborn Accuser. Sorry. Let's go back to not that one was an epic. I did skip it, right?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay. Stoneborn Accuser is a common. We like to go by rarity. That's why I skipped more than one. Okay, that's why I
You
was
also
that's why I
skipped
couldn't find.
Dispossessed Soul.
Yeah, that's why this is why I'm like, why can't I find Party Crasher? Because I'm not on epics yet. Okay, so sorry guys, super jet lag. Stoneborn Accuser is also a B, and this one's a 5-mana 5/5. Infuse 5, gain Battle Cry, deal 5 damage. So it's a 5-mana 5/5 that deals 5 damage, which sounds incredibly good. And it is incredibly good, except for the fact that you will almost never be able to play this on curve. Because it's just a 5-mana 5/5, and it's way better with the infuse. Like, some infuses make it pretty good, this infuse makes it way better. So you're always going to wait. So it is not a 5-drop. It's almost like a spell, and you do have to hold it in your hand for a while. Remember when we said 4 is not that much, 3 is almost nothing? Well, at 5, you're starting to actually kind of feel it in terms of how long you have to hold this thing in your hand. And you do have to hold this thing in your hand. So it is super powerful when it works, but it's also awkward.
Yep. But the payoff is great. Like, you do want the payoff. So I think B is kind of appropriate for it. And once again, I think you will be able to wait it out in a certain number of situations. But yes, this is definitely not a guarantee. And sometimes you will have to play it because Infuse 5 takes a long time. But if you do get it, 5 damage is a lot.
Yep. Alright. Next, we have Dispossessed Soul. Dispossessed Soul. They have this in totally a different order than I do. It's really screwing with me. Okay. Dispossessed Soul is a rare card. It's our first rare card in the B category, and our only rare card in the B category. And it is a 4-mana 4/5, like a Yeti. Battle Cry. If you control a location, discover a copy of a card in your deck. So a Yeti is the bottom of C / the very top of D+, and this one's a B. So you get that same thing that we were talking about with Priest of the Deceased, where this is a really powerful ability. And the trigger is if you control a location. Well, if you ever have a location, it's going to stay on the board for a long time. So it's very easy to trigger this, but you do have to have a location. The
effect is just really powerful. The effect is ridiculously powerful because you're discovering a copy of a card in your deck, so it's double curated, right? You picked these cards, and yes, you might pick the occasional Pantry Spider, but you pick these cards, so on average, they are pretty good, and then you get to pick again from cards that you already picked. So really good effect. Now, this score is an average score. It will depend on what
it's actually the highest
score.
Yeah, it depends on what the location is, right? Every class has one location, and remember the locations are boosted in offering rate. And a lot of them are really good. They're not like S tier cards, but they're ones that you're going to pick if you get offered it. So that's what we're kind of assuming. There are some classes that this wouldn't apply to, obviously, because their location cards are total crap. But for most classes, this is the score that's going to happen. Okay, so just don't overlook it. I think it'll be kind of obvious once you start drafting and you start picking the locations that you're like, oh, okay, I have this synergy, right? I can use the synergy, and then I can get an extra card draw that is a discover. It's like an insanely good ability. But yeah, don't sleep on this card if you have a location. It just takes one location in your whole deck to make this worthy of a pick. Like of a boosted pick over a Yeti, right? Like obviously at the floor, it's still a Yeti.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Now we are at Sinfield Golem,
We are
right?
finally back at Sinfield Golem. This is back to the epics. And Sinfield Golem is a 7 mana, 2/2 epic neutral, infuse 3. Gain stats equal to the attack of the minions that infused this. So, that is potentially a lot of stats. Now, if you use it with performers, that is not a lot of stats. But you should not use it with performers, and instead use it with other things. If you just use it with your normal stuff that has like 3 or 4 attack, let's say it's like 3 attack, then you're gaining +9/+9. And if it's 4 attack, you're gaining +12/+12. On top of the 2/2.
I will say, this is one that I didn't see it. I still don't really see it, but I'm kind of okay with this score. And okay, so the math on this says it is a what exactly?
The B. All these cards are Bs.
Like the stat.
Oh, the stats?
How much are you?
Oh,
Yeah.
God. I don't know off the top of my head. Let's say 12? Maybe 14? It's really, really freaking big. And remember, what we keep saying, Infuse 3 is very easy to trigger. Infuse 4 is okay to trigger. Infuse 5 is a little harder to trigger. You don't have to wait that long for this.
It's true. Maybe this is just one of those cards in which I see the downsides more than the upsides, and on average it's going to be okay. This is one that I'm going to say is hard for me to exactly see the good in, but I'm not exactly like super comfortable with it. I'll draft it. I'll see where it is.
Yeah. And people were worried about tokens. All the tokens are gone in this meta. If you're thinking of the Rams, that's not there. If you're thinking of the Piranhas, they're not there. Like, this is a different meta. In fact, we were just talking about it when we ran down the meta, right? Like, there's not a lot of small tempo cards. Like, yeah, Mermy's back, but that's kind of it. And yes, Mermy absolutely wrecks this card. Absolutely wrecks this card. But you're hopefully not getting this, right? Like, in the early going. Like, so it is a card that you can get screwed by. But it's also a card that can just win you the game on turn 7 or, like, later on. And we're just covering, like, 3 attack, 4 attacks. You could have a big card by the time you draw this card, right? Like, you could have, like, a 8/8 on the board. And then this card immediately becomes insanely big.
Yeah. So, look, this is one... Let it be shown, I'm a little bit skeptical about, but
people are talking about derailed coaster, but like you get to control that. Like, you don't play a derailed coaster when this is in your hand and not infused already 3 times. Like, you are in control of these things. It's not like you have a derailed coaster and then you have to play it, right? Like, unless you're gonna die, then you do have to play it. But you can choose to just wait for 3 things to die before you play your derailed coaster, which is not that long. All right.
Okay.
Next up is the legendary. So we have one legendary B tier card. It is Althea Sunstrider. Althea Sunstrider, 6 mana. It is 4/7, which is low. And it says every 3rd minion you play each turn costs 0 mana. So
I'm curious to know.
This is super RNG, right?
It depends on what is in your hand at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the way you look at it, right? Like, you could have the really super duper good scenario where, okay, you have Kael'thas, you have a 1-drop, and then you have something huge, right?
Like that 10-drop that's rated A, like that Stoneborn General.
Yeah, you can have that. Or you can just have like a red herring, right? That's pretty good. That's a really good scenario. In other scenarios, you just cheat out not that much tempo. And if you're cheating out not that much tempo, that's just called playing Arena in 2022, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think that this card is going to piss off a lot of people because it has the potential to completely pop off. But Yeah, you need like a kind of like a 3-card combo almost, and you can continue onwards, but
It's
you gotta
a
kind of
it is a
start
3 card
playing.
combo, but it's like an easy 3 card combo because you're like 8 mana cards or 9 mana cards or
Hello?
10 mana cards. You're not going to be playing like anyway, so they're just going to be in your hand. So the only real combo, so you need it to exist, right? But they're unlikely to be played. So the main combo piece is like think of it in terms of rogue combos, right? Like when you're trying to combo with a kidnapper or you combo with some other 6 mana card. Um, like it's not the easiest, smoothest thing to pull off, but when you do pull it off, the effect is huge.
Yep. So at the end of the day, I'm like, slap a B on it. I think
Yep,
it's fine.
it's just very RNG. Like it has no RNG in the card, but it is incredibly RNG based on your draw. All right. Well, that's the end of this. This is the kind of the second tier of the neutral cards. These are all Bs. It worked out really nicely. None of these are B pluses. They're all Bs. If you want a comparison for what Bs are from like Sunken City, let's say, here's what Bs are from Sunken City. Uh, Click Clocker, Pelican Diver, Vicious Slither Sphere, Crush Claw Enforcer, Reef Walker, but I think we upped that afterwards. Um, Baba Naga, Excavation Specialist. We also mistakenly gave Selfish Shellfish a B. That was our bad. um, but yeah, those are the cards we gave a B to in Sunken City pre-release. So they're like good, but they're not like amazing or anything. Like they're not as good as say the B plus cards, which is Smothering Starfish, Slime Scale Diver, um, and they're not as good as A cards like Amalgam of the Deep, like Pufferfist in good classes, like School Teacher, Gangplank Diver, Mothership, right? And that they're just kind of they're good cards, right? We call literally, if you look at the tier list, it says good. That's how we describe these cards. And I think all these cards are good. You will want them in your deck. We are going to do the next video on all the rest of the cards, which is kind of unfair because it includes some really terrible cards, but it also includes some like quite a bit of like C pluses, which are almost Bs. You got to draw the line somewhere. So we'll start with that on the next video. Any shout outs you want to do, or any comments on the B tier cards?
No comments on the B tier cards. I think that, this is. I'm gonna try to keep this short. Okay. So
Okay.
no
Okay.
comments at all.
Okay, no comments. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Bye guys.